Glad you're here.
Thank you. Yeah, joining the storms.
Yeah, right? Crazy out there right now.
It has been crazy out there. Oh my goodness. Oh, what a wonderful day.
Long this meeting is supposed to last?
Is that what they said?
Can you tell me how long the meeting is supposed to last?
Yeah, I think we'll be in conversation for about 45 minutes, but feel free to step away whenever you need to if we run a little bit long.
Why don't we hit, what is that for? That's live on Facebook? What does that mean? Did I hit the wrong thing? Maybe, no. Why don't we can't get the gallery, Erin?
Oh, it might be because I'm sharing my screen right now. So I'll go ahead and stop that and we can get started in just a minute.
Okay, fine. I just didn't know. It looked like you were enjoying
There
it
we
last.
go. Can you see it now?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Okay.
Excellent. Excellent.
Oh, but
Now we
wait
get
a
to
minute.
see
Now that's
everyone's
facing. Wait,
faces.
we got there. We got to get that. Okay.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone who isn't one of our speakers. A few other people coming in, and we are streaming this live to Facebook. So if you want to turn your cameras off, if that's your preference, go for it. But of course, we'd love to see everyone. All right. Jim, I'm going to spotlight you. And
Greetings and peace to all of you. I'm Jim Poinsett, Executive Director of the Interfaith Partnership of Greater St. Louis, and welcome to another edition of Thursdays Together. Wherever you are and whatever platform that you are joining us from, we are so glad that you are able to spend some time with us today in conversation and reflection. As many of you know, the ones that have been here before, we've been doing a variation of this ever since last spring, but for those of you that are new with us, this is how it goes. We have put together this time of coming together and to share the wisdom from our various religious traditions in a time that has been uncertain and continues to be uncertain in many ways. And I hope that this time is a source of connection and caring that can also be comforting and spiritually nourishing for you. This past year, we have struggled against the coronavirus, and then we have also been reminded as these weeks have gone, weeks and months have passed, that there are also other viruses in our society and in our world that we also suffer from, injustice and racism, for instance. And still, all of us have dealt in our own ways with strife and anger and grief and loneliness that has come with all the things that have happened in this past year. It seems that the only way that we have been able to keep it together is to come together in this once a month or so, and to interact with each other in this platform. And that's the goal of Thursdays Together. And our idea is to have local clergy and lay leaders share experiences and insight and wisdom. And together we can seek new paths forward through these challenges that we find ourselves with us. And as always, our hope is that by reflecting and processing together, we can deepen our connection to the divine. We can provide strength and support one another and help foster a more hopeful community. And in doing so, I realized that just last month we sat here in April and celebrated that many people had gotten vaccinated. And as things have gone this past year, we things change so rapidly that just a month later, we're now celebrating that over 60% of Americans over 18 years old have had at least one dose of the vaccine now. It was just announced last week that 2 million people in Missouri have had at least one vaccine. Now that still leaves a good 60% of people that still need to be vaccinated here in Missouri, but it seems like we're on our way. And as the weather has turned, it seems our mood has shifted and our outlook has brightened with the summer sun, as we have a lot of houses of worship have begun to reopen, if you will, and re-engage in-person worship and gatherings. And that leaves all of us in a bit of a bind. How do we act? For me personally, I've been told for over a year now, if you don't wear your mask, you might die. And so I still wear my mask because it's so difficult to pivot within a year. And this time that we find ourselves in, I think demands a little bit of reflection as we enter into a new season. Not only a new season with the weather, but a new season with how we work in our new pandemic world. And so we are so fortunate and blessed today, actually, to be able to share three great conversation partners that will help us navigate this and look back and look forward and reflect where we are. And I will introduce them in a moment, but as always, you are free to make comments in the chat if you are watching here on Zoom, and then in the comment section on if you're watching on Facebook Live. And if we have some time at the end and people have some sharing or questions or comments for our conversation partners, then that will be welcomed as well as time allows. So I'm so pleased to introduce our conversation partners for today. Our first conversation partner will be Rabbi Jim Bennett, who is the senior rabbi at Congregation Share MF. We'll also get to speak with Venerable Zhuai Huang from Fo Gongshang Buddhist Center here in St. Louis, and then we will also get to be in conversation with Reverend Zachary Mullins, who is the pastor of the Rebirth CME Church here in St. Louis, and is also a traveling elder with the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church here. So let's get started and jump right in. Rabbi Bennett, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. Glad to have you here. And I'd just like to say that I had the privilege of speaking to your congregation in the middle of February, and that stands out in my mind not only because it was a privilege to get to speak to your congregation that night, but is also the last in-person worship service that I have attended since February of 2020. So tell me, I know how my year's been, but tell me just a little bit about what your year has been like and leading a congregation through this year.
Well, thank you, Jim, and thanks for welcoming me. I think my answer to your first question, and what has it been like, is what everybody's answer would be, which is it has been challenging, and it has been a learning experience. It's been a test of our patience. But I will also add, for me, and I'm looking at the other faces on this Zoom. I see many familiar friends and a lot of people that I don't yet know, but who I hope I can call friends as well. I think, ironically, it has been a year of not only staying apart, but also a year of coming together in new ways. And this is an example of that, being together even though we're still separated. It's been an amazing year in many ways.
And so I mentioned earlier that the vaccination rates keep going up, and you and I had a brief conversation before we got started today that your congregation, Sherem F, is now fully open. Did I hear you say that correctly? Is that
No.
the terminology you're using, or tell me where you are now in the reopening process, and what have you been doing to make that happen, including what ways, if at all, encouraging the vaccine?
No, thank you for asking. We are not fully open. We are just beginning our reopening. Actually, starting June the 1st, we will begin to welcome our members and members of the community back to our building. I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable, so I hope people are hearing me. But
Loud and clear.
the blessing of Zoom, right?
Right.
But we are beginning to gather the first Friday in June. We'll begin to gather as a community in worship, but in limited forms, limited numbers, and still with some restrictions. But I think we're beginning to see, as you implied in your opening words, we see the sun breaking through the clouds and beginning to realize that we can begin to gather. We're doing it cautiously, not because we have to, but because we think it's prudent and wise, and gradually over the course of the next few months. Somebody described what all of us are experiencing and what you described yourself, Jim, as kind of a COVID-induced agoraphobia. We've gotten so good at and so used to being separate and protective of ourselves and wearing our masks and staying home and being isolated that we've almost forgotten how to gather. And we've forgotten the basic premise of the fact that we are, kind of a hopefully communal species. We need to be together. And so I think what we're experiencing at Sherem and what I see happening all around is that we're beginning to gradually teach ourselves again that we can and should gather together.
Well, go along those lines then, especially with the isolation, but with isolation, a lot of times comes fear and distrust sometimes, but or just a wariness of the other. So what do you think the lingering effects of that will be? And those of us that are religious leaders, make other people comfortable in this coming back together. What's our responsibility in helping facilitate that?
I think it's a matter of balance, a matter of balancing our fear with our hope and balancing our protectiveness with our openness. Remembering one of my favorite teachings from the Jewish tradition comes from our Talmud, from the Mishnah, where it says, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? My first responsibility, of course, is to care for myself and my loved ones. But Rabbi Hillel, who taught this, went on to say, if I am only for myself, what am I? That we have to not only be fearful and mistrusting when we might be legitimately at danger, but we also have to remember that that's not where the story ends, that we have to also reach out beyond and care for one another. And then he ends and he says, if not now, when? Now's the time. And it's hard for us. We're not ready, but we have to push ourselves to be ready.
I'm seeing Jim frozen. Rabbi Bennett, is that what you're experiencing?
I'm afraid I'm frozen.
No, you're not, am I frozen or am I back?
You're back now too.
Okay, all right, great. So, the way you were going, if I'm not for, so tell me again what you just said, that last sentence, sorry.
So if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Teaches us that it's about balance, that we should be protective, but we also have to push ourselves to be moving forward always towards others.
So what then is there another blessing or that you would like to share with us then or prayer for us as we go and continue to push forward with one another. And thank you again for your time here with us today.
I think my prayer is really based on some core values of our faith. I would say, God of the universe, be with us because we feel so lost. We are unable to escape the darkness of this world that seems to be hanging over us. Help us and give us strength to combat our fear and despair, and show us how to put our fear and despair into new perspective, and teach us emet, truth, and chesed, kindness, and tzedek, justice, and tikva, hope. And most of all, God, we ask that you teach us shalom, peace, not only for ourselves, but for all who dwell on earth. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Bennett, for those words. And may, as we press forward into the new season of our lives and this pandemic, may we always keep in mind the truth, kindness, justice, and hope and peace for which you just prayed and hope to live into all of those. Our next conversation partner is the Venerable Jue Huang with the Buddhist Center here in St. Louis. Venerable Jue, welcome. Glad you're with us. People might not know this, and you may not even remember, but you were part of the very first one of these that we did back in spring of 2020. And so it has been about 14 months since you've been with us on one of these things, but just how's it been going, and what's this year like? Has it been for you?
Okay, so I think the most differences between what I was in last year and this year is I got fully vaccinated.
Nice.
Okay, and so I think so are you. And this year is being really tough also. But at the beginning of the outbreak, my master actually sent a prayer for every one of us. And there is a line saying that may the momentary isolation become retreat for self-retrospection. Yeah, but I think that it is said that it's momentary, but right now it's being kind of like yearly or even more, right? Even longer. So before we would think that it is a retreat, but it seems that it is very, very long. But we have Zoom. So actually I have done in our denomination, we have done a lot of retreat online or on Zoom, and on Zoom. And we have done a lot of live streaming events, especially in our congregation, not just here in St. Louis, but it is kind of like, we know that there are a lot of more temples in America. So we have done these. So this is what we have done this. So actually we were being kind of like more busy because not just locally, we have to, deal with consulting our members, but also we have to deal with, the meetings or a lot of programs, held internationally. Yeah, so this year is quite busy. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And you answered a part of what I was going to ask you next, but I do want to go back for it and have you lay it out for people just a little bit more. Because I remember you said last spring that one of the ways that we can train our mind is to think of this time as not difficult, but special. And so in
Yes.
what ways have you been able to learn that you can share with us that might be able to help us that are still might think this is difficult to remind us of ways that this has become special instead of difficult over the past year, and how to keep that mindset going forward?
Actually, we believe that every crisis in life, it is a turning point. And I think this is a turning point for every one of, it's just kind of like a very big turning point that happened at the same time to us. Yeah. So it is a very, very rare situation and rare opportunity for us. So I think that, and I'm very, very grateful that I have my own faith, kind of like it is kind of like a that can help me to serve as a tool to kind of like armor, that I can wear and defend. Okay, so I think when we are fighting for the COVID and the sickness, right, we are like a soldier, but the most important thing is that when we are having the crisis in our life, we are also fighting as a soldier. So where is our weapon? I think that is that can be found in our faith, our teachings, and also in our scriptures. So this is something that I would like to share with you. So we have compassion in Buddhism, but I think that there are compassion and loving kindness in every religions or every faith, and we have supports from maybe from God or from the Buddha, even though we are not right now, we don't have human support, but we have a really support from something up there. Okay, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So it got busy, and even though we were separated, but we were still maintained connected and even broadened our connections in some way. What kinds of things will from this experience will we keep and continue to utilize, or how will the Buddhist Center be back to open to in-person gatherings, and so what kind of things might we hang on to, and what kind of things that in the past that we're just not going to do anymore?
Actually, for our temple, we have encouraged people to do the vaccination, as as all the churches and the centers do, and most of our temple, our member has been vaccinated, but we are still very careful for that. And right now we think that it is still a long way to go to be a fully reopening for our community. So we are going to do it step by step. So right now we are moving our big events to outdoor with an open space. Okay, so just like what we have done on May 16, we're celebrating our Buddhist birthday celebration in the park. Okay, so people just come in and they will be feeling more safe and more friendly, and people have personal or interpersonal connections. I think this is very important. And so and we can see their happiness, because when we have when we have a line to for bathing the Buddha, then there is a loud chat in the line. So it's kind of like, wow, people are so excited to meet each other, talking to each other. So I think this was a big success for us. So now we're planning another outdoor event for July 4th. So this is something that we are doing right now.
Oh, all right. That sounds amazing, and really taking taking the opportunity to create something new and in the midst of an otherwise difficult situation. I really love that. And so, and that is the key of being resilient. One of the keys to being resilient. What does your something from your faith tradition say about resiliency that you would like to share with us, and what kind of blessing do you have for those of us listening to keep going as we continue to navigate this today?
Yes, so I believe that everyone have learned about, a basic, teachings about Buddhism, which is the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so there are four: suffering or unsatisfactory, cause of suffering, the state of alleviating suffering, and way of alleviating suffering. Right? So actually, this is a process of realizing where we are and how we become. So I think that the fundamental teachings helps us to be more resilient, okay, to coping with the hardship. And as my master said, life should be like a basketball. The harder you hit, the higher it bounced. So I think there is. If we have faith in our mind, and if we have all of the tools, okay, and I think that we can really have kind of like weapons, just like weapons, and we can be really fighting and win this fight. Yep.
Thank you.
Am I freezing now?
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that blessing with us. Thank you again, Venerable, for those words as we work to redirect our difficulties into something special and maintaining our resiliency. Our third conversation partner today is someone that's new to work of Interfaith Partnership. We're so glad to have him along and with us today. And I'd like to introduce the Reverend Zachary Mullins. And Reverend Mullins is the pastor of the Rebirth CME Church here in St. Louis. And he is also a traveling elder with the CME Church, and he is fully living into that today. In his role, he is joining us from Memphis, I believe, and he was in his car a while ago, but I think now he is with us in a hotel room or something like that. Reverend Mullins, or Pastor Zach, how are you?
Good evening, everyone. I'm well. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Got it loud and clear. So
awesome.
Thank you for joining us from a very long distance. This is the beauty of Zoom. What Venerable Jouet was talking about, being able to connect over long distances. Thank you for joining us from the road.
Thank you so much for this invitation, and thank God for grace and the positioning of my participation that I was able to get to a secure place.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what the year has been like for you and your community.
Well, I think this is a great place to begin by thanking God for the presence of many of the Rebirth members on this evening who are present on tonight, along with my wife. All of them have truly been partners in ministry this year. For it is the true nuance and nucleus of the Black experience and the Black church experience to gather, and often to gather around some good cooking and to have some good church together. And so what the pandemic did was totally pivot our traditions, our traditional worship experiences, as many other traditions have experienced as well. But one thing I can say is that it has been a year full of excitement, even in the midst of the pain of so many losses and the pains of this pandemic and what it has done in separating us. It has shown us that we can do so much more. It has shown us different avenues to worship, to fellowship, and to be the church, and to be the church.
And just take me through that a little bit. How difficult was it to make that transition for you? Because not everybody started in the same place in this pandemic, at least technologically speaking. So were there barriers that you overcome, and how were you and your community able to work through that?
Well, I'm thankful that I'm a self-taught, I'll call myself a tech whiz, but I'm self-taught. And so whatever that means, but I was able to pivot pretty quickly. At first we began to worship via Zoom. And then we went further in pre-recorded worship experiences that air live on Facebook and YouTube. And they have truly been a blessing to the congregation. It has allowed me to safely include members in worship, where they have scheduled times to come and record themselves with no one in the sanctuary but me and them, socially distanced. They've been able to see themselves in places that they normally did not see themselves. And so I will say God has blessed in that way to make us still feel like community, even though we're socially distant.
Mm-hmm. And so where are you currently, right? So some things like the technology has allowed us to hold on to, but some things just doesn't beat being together in person, especially when it comes to food and gathering around that. That resonates with me a lot. And so where's your community right now, and what are you doing to encourage reopening and vaccination and that kind of thing, if at all?
So currently we are still primarily virtual. What we were doing during the pandemic also is on first Sundays, we would have communion in the community, where we would have our worship experience on the parking lot. And members would pull up in the car, crack the window, roll the window down. They'll be able to hear the worship experience. As vaccinations began to happen, we invited them, they can come out to the car, sit in a patio chair if they brought one, and have worship outdoors. We just got the green light from our Episcopal leader, Bishop Sylvester Williams Sr., to envision returning to in-person worship. And so at this time, the Rebirth Church is just beginning the conversation about how that might look. As you know, I always like to press and lift up that history has shown us that Black folk always have to be more cautious sometimes than other communities. And so my first priority is to make sure that when worship comes back to in person, that we are making the safest choices for our congregation.
Yeah, right. So as we were speaking a little bit earlier, right? Isolation can also, and for a lot of reasons that are beyond the surface, right, can cause also fear and distrust also come with it. So what is our responsibility as leaders and healers to bring people back together as we do that? I hear a little bit that you're saying is like we have to be cautious about it, but how can we pave the road, or how do we go about paving the road for reuniting and building trust again as we come back together?
I think it's as leaders of the church, we must showcase responsibility. And so I did all I could to be one of the first in my congregation to be vaccinated, so that I could say, your pastor has been vaccinated and he did not grow a tail, he did not die, I am here. And I want you, because there needs to be leadership in every community. And so that was my main focus in trying to get vaccinated, so I can tell my people it's healthy, it's safe. The second thing is, I believe it's an opportunity for us to really reevaluate what we were doing out of tradition and what we were doing that really made an impact. Because no matter where you arise from, there are elements of our worship, our communing together, that are strictly tradition, but sometimes may not make an impact. And so I think God has given us an opportunity to say, The pandemic has stripped us to Zoom, has stripped us to being socially distant and figuring out worship. What were we doing because someone told us to do versus what were we doing that really changed lives? And I think this is a grand opportunity to ask ourselves and ask God that question.
Yeah, are you still in that conversation, or do you have an example of something that you might let go once we're able to come back?
Yes, I would say I'm still wrestling with that because as a millennial pastor, my members can attest to the fact that I am not often fearful to change things that don't make impacts. And so I have pastored many of them for 6+ years now, so they're used to me, and they give me grace in my youthfulness. But I think one of the main things I would say as Methodists, as good Methodists, we love to meet. In fact, we meet about meetings sometimes. And so I ask myself the question, even at the local church, what meetings are necessary? And what meetings have we had and scheduled, taking up people's time? Because that's what we always do. So I would definitely think about that.
Yeah. So my background is Presbyterian, and that totally relates to that, because we have to have a meeting to discuss the meeting about when we might hold the next meeting. So that certainly resonates with me. It's it really we heard from everybody, but about the need for resiliency and the gift that God can provide in the midst of resiliency. So from your particular tradition, what lessons from resiliency is there that you would like to share with us? And please share a blessing or a prayer for us as we wrap up our conversation.
Yes, I believe I always go back to highlighting the history of the CME Church. The CME Church is a historic Black denomination that was created in Jackson, Tennessee in 1870 in response to the white Methodist Church not allowing us freedom of worship and assigning us to the balcony, and that was the only place that we could be in worship. And we responded by creating a denomination that now spans throughout the United States, Africa, Haiti, and Jamaica. I say that to say that the Black community is the poster boy for resilience. Somehow, when we are given nothing, we make a way to make something through the help of God. And so I'm reminded of the song my grandmother always sings when she's cleaning or doing something in the house that says, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking, marching up to freedom land. And as we seemingly come out of this pandemic and reimagine what worship should be, I would say, as you deal with persons wanting to go back to tradition, continue to say, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. When fear comes and oversweeps you, because even though the science says you can take your mask off, but you really want to keep yours on, just declare, I ain't gonna let nothing turn me around. When you feel overwhelmed with trying to make decisions and trying to make the best decisions for your family, for your congregation, remind yourself that you're not gonna let anything turn you around. And the God we serve, whatever God, whatever form of God, the God we serve, as we say in the Black Methodist Church, is able to keep us from stumbling. Don't let nothing turn you around.
Amen. Don't let anyone turn us around as we continue to go forward. Pastor Zach, thank you so much for those words, and also special thank you to Venerable Jue Hong and Rabbi Jim Bennett for your words for us today. We have a few minutes. If there's anybody watching that would like to share a comment or two for our conversation partners, or is there any questions? We had lots of good comments in the chat, and Venerable Jue, you had a lovely blessing in the chat there. If you want to share with us real quick, and then Aaron, if you see anybody want to, or just if people want to unmute themselves and make a comment, we have a few minutes for that.
Okay, so actually, this passage is from a very common book, scripture called Dhammapada, and it is a Theravadic tradition. And the first is that I posted on the chat is from the chapter about happiness. So actually, there are several things, but I just kind of like make two out of it. So let me read it. So let us live truly happily without hatred. Among those who have hatred, among humans who have hatred, let us live without hatred. Let us live truly happily without sickness. Among those who are sick, among humans who have sickness, let us live without sickness.
Thank you. Are there any comments from anybody else, your panelists or anybody in the audience?
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm so great. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you for sharing all the wisdom that I've appreciated very much. The only thing I can add is the continued growth even as you grow older, and you understand and witness the changes, and you appreciate each version, each flower, so to speak, in the garden of God. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that has been a part of these this spring. This will continue in some form and some platform going forward, but just as you've heard today, we're also reconfiguring about what mix is going to be best for our programming in person versus virtual. But this has been such a, at least I speak for my colleague Aaron, has been a real joy for us to be able to do on occasion, and we hope to continue them in some form going forward, and we'll let you all know of that. But for now, we thank all of our conversation partners and thank all of you for being a part of this, and hope that you will continue to support the work of the Interfaith Partnership of Greater St. Louis, and we will see you at our next time. Everybody be safe and be well, and peace be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and blessings to everybody.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pastor. Bye, Venerable.
Bye. Thank you.